How long can a heart wait for a yes that never comes? She asked this without speaking, eyes closed, soul peeled open, on a night when silence felt like mockery. It was her 30th birthday. She lit a single candle and whispered the same request she'd carried since childhood. A sign, not a miracle, not thunder from the heavens. Just a breath. Gentle, quiet. That would let her know she hadn't been asking in vain. She lived in an old house with jammed windows and clocks that no longer cared for hours. Her days repeated like prayers no one remembered. Tea at 6, a straw chair facing west, a frayed notebook filled with dreams that never came true. Some called her naive, others a mystic. She no longer cared what they called her. At some forgotten point, she had vowed to keep waiting. As a child, she buried letters to the sky beneath the soil. Maybe, she thought, if the answer didn't come through clouds, it would rise through roots. At 12, she wished for the church bell to toll without a hand. At 19, she dropped a coin in the river with a silent pact. If it ever returned, she'd follow wherever it led. At 25, she knelt before a cracked mirror and begged the fracture to show her something beyond her own tired face. But the sky stayed quiet. The bell never rang. The coin never came back. And the mirror showed only what she already knew. Still, something within her would not stop. It wasn't hope anymore, nor desire. It was a silent faithfulness, like an old dog waiting by the door, not knowing if anyone was ever coming home. And then, on the night of her 30th year, as the wind crept through the cracked frame and snuffed the candle before she could form the wish, something shifted. It wasn't a sound. It wasn't a vision. It was an absence. So exact. So deliberate. It felt, at last, like an answer. The next morning, she woke with the strange feeling she had forgotten something essential. Not a task, not a name, but a gesture. The house was unchanged. Clock still slow, the kettle still sighing its tired song. But something was misplaced. Not in space, but in presence. Something moved in the way picture frames leaned slightly wrong. Something breathed in the creaking floorboards. In the backyard, she gathered fallen lemon peels. One had curled into a spiral, as if shaped by fingers that didn't belong to this world. She'd seen patterns before, leaves shaped like hearts, clouds like hands. But today, she didn't name anything. She placed the spiral peel into an old envelope, like someone collecting evidence from a conversation with silence. For the first time in years, she didn't ask. Not even in her mind. She made no wish, asked no question. She simply listened to the house, as if it were breathing. Every shadow, every creak, every fold of afternoon light seemed to speak in a language reserved for those who no longer need to understand. Later, a neighbor she barely knew appeared at the gate. In her hands, a small, nameless box. Said she found it on the steps of the old church and felt it should come here. No explanation, no farewell. She placed the box on the kitchen table and walked away, as if fulfilling an ancient promise. She didn't open it, not right away. For hours she just sat and looked, as if gazing at a seed that hadn't yet remembered how to bloom. It smelled faintly of childhood, of something forgotten that hadn't forgotten her. The wrapping was coarse, hand-touched, like a letter written by someone long gone. She pressed her ear to the box. Inside, a sound, barely a sound, like wind moving through an open field. Not an object, a presence. Something didn't want to be opened. It wanted to be recognized. She left the box on the table for 3 days like someone waiting for a wild creature to grow accustomed to her presence. At night, she dreamt of endless corridors, doors that led to the same place, and a silent girl watching her without speaking. When she woke, her hands smelled faintly of the box's wood, though she hadn't touched it. On the 4th day, she wrapped the box in a cloth embroidered by her grandmother and carried it to the attic, where things lived that defied naming. It was a narrow space with a single round window. The light came in dust-heavy and golden, drawing circles in the air. She placed the box atop an old trunk and lit a candle. Then she sat beside it. No questions, no intentions, just a quiet presence. Some signs don't want to be solved. They want to be shared. The silence between her and the box was sacred, like the hush before recognition, not revelation. The kind of silence that knows exactly what you've been waiting for. On the wall, an oval mirror hung in a frame of blackened iron. It wasn't just decoration. It was the first gift her mother ever gave her. She approached it slowly. Her reflection startled her, not for what it showed, but for what it didn't. The eyes weren't entirely hers. The face seemed borrowed from another lifetime. Yet behind that strangeness, something shimmered faintly, light that rose not from the surface, but from within. Then came the memory, sudden and whole. At 5 years old, she had buried a box just like this in her grandmother's garden. Inside it, a blue button, a dried petal, and a torn slip of paper that read, "Return when you remember." She didn't know how the memory found her now, or how the words rose so clearly, but she felt it. Invisible threads stretched between the girl and the woman, and time, perhaps, was not a line, but a loop. That night, the box began to warm, not hot, not pulsing, just quietly warm, like something breathing in its sleep. She didn't flinch. Instead, she lay on the attic floor, face turned toward the ceiling, eyes open, and memories came, not in words, but in sensation, the scent of her grandmother's room, the sharp cry of swallows in February, the fabric of the dress she wore the first time she asked for a sign, the silent ache of realizing that no one else believed in what she still held on to, and the strange certainty that something, someone, had always been with her, even when everything seemed empty. Above her, the candle flickered not with fear, but as if listening. The flame leaned and straightened like breath responding to breath. And in that soft trembling, she knew the box was never meant to be opened, because what lived inside it wasn't a thing. It was an echo of her own remembering, of a question returning home. She wept gently, not with sadness, but with release, as if something frozen within her had finally thawed. Around her, the attic shifted. Dust hung still in the air. The long dead clock resumed its quiet tick. And in the mirror, something new. The mirror no longer reflected her face. Instead, it revealed a wide field, one tree, a child seated at its base, facing away, waiting. No movement, no sound. Just a stillness so alive, it made her breath catch. She didn't know where it was, or what it meant, but somehow she knew it was for her. Not from the world outside, but from the deepest layer of trust she had never been able to silence. And for the first time in 3 decades, she didn't feel alone. The next morning, her steps felt lighter, like something long carried had been quietly set down. She walked through the house, unchanged but different. The mirror by the hallway still showed the field, but now, the child beneath the tree was standing. She didn't hesitate. She gathered the cloth-wrapped box and set out for her grandmother's old house. She wasn't sure if it still stood, or if anyone would be there. But something deeper than memory called her. Not with urgency, but with clarity. The journey was slow. The world looked unfamiliar. Each tree, each fence, each forgotten turn seemed to carry a whisper from somewhere older than language. She arrived as the sky turned to amber. The house was empty, but not abandoned. Vines had softened the walls. Pollen lay thick on the windowsills, but everything felt paused, as if time had stopped here, waiting. She walked to the backyard. The lemon tree was still alive, not flourishing, not failing, simply enduring. Beside it, a shallow mark in the soil, like something had recently been unearthed. She knelt, not to dig, but to listen. Her fingers touched the ground. Warm, just like the box. The same warmth, the same stillness. It pulsed through the roots into her chest, and then she saw it, clearly. That forgotten day. Her 5-year-old self burying the small box, the blue button, the petal, the note. But now there was something else. Behind the child stood a woman, silent, watching, with the same eyes she saw in her mirror now, a presence that smiled without movement, that whispered something into the child's ear, something she didn't hear then. But now, she understood. The woman was her. She had returned to witness her own planting. She had always been the sign. That night she lit a candle at the center of the room and placed the small mirror beside it. The whole house seemed to exhale with her. No sound, only rhythm. The window, slightly open, let in a soft wind. The curtains swayed gently, like fabric in a forgotten chapel. She sat cross-legged on the floor, hands resting open on her knees. She didn't close her eyes. She simply remained. There were no more questions. And strangely, that didn't mean there were answers. Only a stillness, vast and steady, like a field where nothing needs to arrive. She now understood. The sign she'd waited for wasn't a moment. It was a movement, not a reply, but a return. Outside, the moon was swelling. Inside, something else was growing too. A quiet knowing that didn't need to speak. The mirror no longer reflected her face, but small, scattered lights, as if every long-held ache had become a tiny constellation. She reached for the spiral peel she had saved, placed it gently inside the empty box, closed the lid, wrapped it once more in her grandmother's cloth, and buried it beneath the window where she used to sit and wait. Not to hide it, but to plant it. Before going back inside, she whispered to the soil, "You don't need to return, I'll carry you now." The field was inside her, the waiting was complete. And yet, somewhere beyond the known, something waited still. If this found you, it means the echo has touched you too. Gaze into your mirror, not to see, but to remember. Bury your own box. Let the wind find you. The field lives in me, even when all seems barren. Return whenever silence forgets how to hold you. Some paths only appear when the mirror no longer reflects.